Hello students, good morning all of you. Today I Ravindra Mohan Mishra from Sri Jagdamba Sanskrit College Batho am taking the class of Shastri first. Today we see the metaphysical feature of the poem Death Be Not Brought. We have seen the critical appreciation of the poem Death Be Not Brought, and also we have seen the explanation from this very poem. Death Be Not Brought, the 10th sonnet in the Holy Sonnets, is composed by John Donne. It was written in the time of trouble for the author. He was the founder of metaphysical poems in the Elizabethan period and a religious figure. Donne was famous for his poems of life, death, and religion. A metaphysical poetic style may be philosophical and a spiritual subject that were approached with reason and often concluded in paradox. Essentially, metaphysical thinking is dualistic. It proposes the existence of the two worlds. Meta means above, and physics means the physical worlds. The meta part is above this existence of process and change here on earth. It stated that all things on earth are but similitudes, imperfect copies of ideal forms that exist independently elsewhere in the heavens. All things, including living creatures and inanimate things, are but copies of idealized existence. These exist perfect in every way forever. We humans and others exist in the world of process, ever changing, never achieving the perfection of the forms. They exist forever unchanged. We have a term of life, then we die. His shift of religion and struggles are in life are shown to be distraught and create fear in the individual. Death is seen here a passage to be a better existence. With the great approach, death way not brought, present an argument against the power of death. Addressing death as a person, the speaker warns death against pride in his power. Such power is merely an illusion, and the end death thinks it brings to men and women is in fact a rest from world weariness for its alleged victims. The speaker uses apostrophe and addresses death, an abstract idea, as if it were a person. The poet pretends that death is capable of understanding his feelings as he informally confronts death and belittles him and tells death to not be arrogant because even though some have called him mighty and fearful, he is not. People call death these things and fear him so much for no reason. The poet criticizes death as a slave to other forces such as fate, chance, kings, and desperate men. Death is not in control, for a variety of other powers exercise their volition in taking lives. Even in the rest it brings, death is inferior to drugs. Finally, the speaker predicts the end of death itself. Death is an inevitable truth of life. One who is born is bound to die. The speaker tells death that it should not feel proud, for though some have called it mighty and dreadful, it is not. Those whom death thinks it kills do not truly die, nor the speaker says, "Can thou kill me?" Death Be Not Proud is a single stanza consists of 14 lines, which most line contains a word with the letter T, such as thee, thou, and thy, addressing to death. The first quatrain focuses death. By addressing death, Donne makes it or him into a character through personification. The poet warns death to avoid pride and reconsider it or his position as a mighty and dreadful force. The second quatrain turns the criticism to death as less than fearful into praise for death's good qualities. From death comes much pleasure, since those good souls whom death releases from earthly suffering experience rest of their bones. Done then turns to criticizing death for thinking too highly to itself. Death is no sovereign, and so even death has no superiority. The final couplet caps the argument against death. Not only is death the servant of other powers and essentially impotent to truly kill anyone, but also death is itself destined to die when, as in the Christian tradition, the dead are resurrected to their eternal reward. Duns point out that death has no power and one day will cease to exist. Death in looking forward to external life. The third quatrain outright mocks and belittles death's power. Death has to play by the rules just like mortals. Here, death is actually more pleasurable than sleep, and that many people are ready to embrace, controlled by many forces that have authority over who, how, and when death may do its job. This argument takes away death's mystery by making death mortal, which is neither threatening or in control of anything. Donne puts death domain in the gutter among poison, war, and sickness, and so all should be treated with equal scorn and disrespect. He compared death to charms and drugs, which are simple things to help bring sleep to people as well. Also, he illustrates that death does not measure up the two charms and poppy because they are the enjoyable experience of death and we can awake up from them. This proves that mortals can achieve exactly what death does, so death lost what was left of its pride. In this sonnet, death is closely examined. Death writes about his views on death and his belief that people should not live in fear of death but embrace it. The poet explains his personal understanding of death and its permanence. Here, death is treated as a person and Donne talks to him. Death means the end in some people's eyes, and he is called mighty and fearful. However, Donne tells him not to be proud as he is not that powerful. Death can kill no one, so as done. Death is compared to rest and sleep, two things that are not a scarcity at all. Donne presents a picture of pleasure that death just looks like a person who is sleeping. Death is said to be slave of fate. Throughout this poem, Donne uses literary devices such as imagery and diction to discuss an overarching theme of death along with its religious implications. He also elaborates on the complexity of emotion. Donne's witty and clever style, paired with his affinity for social and religious commentary, allows his work to make immortal. Many fear death just simply thinking about it. However, Donne's persona in this poem interpret death as something pleasant rather than the absolute end. Donne converses with death and argues that death is not the universal destroyer of life. He elaborates again on the conflicts with death through the use of imagery, figurative language, and structure. These elements not only increase the power of Donne's message but also symbolize the meaning of hope of eternal life. In short, we conclude that death and morality are common themes widely used here. Death is a common occurrence in life, and the most people refuse to accept or acknowledge it. Everyone must deal with it at some point in their lifetime.